Hey guys, it's Daniel from Valve Tech, and while I originally had an idea to talk about some of the numerous weapons in Team Fortress 2 that just have been nerfed into the ground in one way or another, either due to balance or fun factor, however, when I came to realize that a lot of these weapons I wanted to cover were actually ones affected in the Jungle Inferno update that was released in 2017. Now with that in mind, I thought it'd be interesting for me to cover some of the weapons that were pretty much done dirty in the Jungle Inferno update and propose what I think would be better changes for the weapon, or at least offer some reasoning to why I think it was wrongfully changed. This is all my opinion, so of course share your thoughts down below. You know, this list is all just my opinion and my take on all the weapons that I personally feel like were affected in a negative way in Jungle Inferno, so just let me know what you think about any of these weapons, and yeah, let's get into this. Now, I'm going to start off with one of the multi-class weapons that probably ended up becoming more useless than it was before this update, the Panic Attack, which is an all-class shotgun to those who can wield it that used to allow the player to load up to 4 shots and unleash them rapidly to deal large bursts of damage. Now, this weapon has a similar concept to almost like the Beggar's Bazooka for Soldier, but with the factor that you can hold those 4 shots and let them go instead of them detonating in your face if you overcharge. Now, while the Panic Attack wasn't ever really the most viable option used by most classes, the weapon had its own charm that I think had a pretty huge fun factor for many, and the slick kills you could pull off in a small amount of time really just made the weapon a really fun experience. Essentially, the weapon lived up to its name, and its old stats of a 34% faster loading time and much quicker firing speed really gave the weapon some character and diversity from the other existing shotguns in the game. And while it wasn't perfect, it certainly isn't even half the weapon it was looking at it today. Now, the Panic Attack today is just a really sad weapon, and it seems that the TF team pretty much removed all identity that the weapon ever really had. Its new design makes the weapon draw 50% faster and spit 50% more pellets at the expense of about 20% less damage. The weapon also had a fixed weapon pattern, which is great and technically means you can hit more pellets on your target with proper aim. However, for some dumb reason, the TF team decided the spread of the weapon would increase with each successive shot that only resets after you stop firing or reloading. Now, this concept makes no sense to me and removes the whole point of the weapon in a practical use. Now, the point of this shotgun is to be well, a weapon you pull out in a panic and deal small bursts of damage in a quick manner. However, the weapon losing all sense of accuracy 3 shots in really just kind of ends up making the gun more of a joke than anything. And in all cases, on most classes, you'd probably be better off running the stock shotgun for just reliable and quick damage. It just seems the entire design of this weapon contradicts itself now, and as much as I'd want to love this gun, it just isn't as practical as some of the other shotguns every class has. Personally, I would just like the old Panic Attack back. Sure, it wasn't by any means a great weapon to begin with, but it certainly was a lot more fun and rewarding to use when it wasn't a worse but slightly faster stock shotgun like it kind of is posed to be as today. I don't really know, I just want this thing to have an identity again like it did originally. It was never a great weapon to begin with, but at least it had something that kind of allowed you to change up your playstyle a bit. The TF team just really dropped the ball here, and I really hardly use this thing anymore, even after it got buffed in the March 20th update of 2018. Now, a lot of the weapons for Spy in this update were nerfed into the ground and arguably a little too much. Sure, a lot of his weapons pre-Jungle Inferno were a little on the overpowered side, but I generally believe that Spy is already the weakest class in the game, so, you know, giving him weapons that he can, like, just reliably, even if he does have weapons that are a bit on the overpowered side, in my opinion, like, that's a good thing, because I really would rather the Spy be a generally, like, effective class, like, on all fronts, than just to be some sort of one-pick gimmick, like he kind of stands today, to be honest. Don't worry, Spy, I'll talk about you in time. I got the balance video in the works. Anyhow, one of the most infamous nerfs in this update had to be the Ambassador. Every Spy main's prized pocket sniper took a huge blow by the TF team, who decided that spies who can aim don't deserve to be rewarded. Now, the only main thing that got nerfed here was the headshot damage at range, which now has fall-off effects and beyond a certain amount of world units. And beyond a certain amount of world units, I think it's about like 1200 or something, there's no crit damage involved if you hit a headshot. Now, while this seems like a simple change, its effects were lasting, and the ability to snipe people from across the map as Spy were kind of forever gone. Now, as much as I hate Spies, I gotta defend this gun here, because on all accounts the TF team just feared Spies who have good aim with revolvers. I understand Sniper exists, and if you want to dome people from across the map, you just go play Sniper, but I mean, aiming with the revolver from those distances in most cases does require a decent amount of skill to pull off, and while it was annoying, I can't say it's not exactly fair, because in reality it was, so I definitely feel like this was sort of a, it's a mixed review change in my opinion, because, like, obviously, coming from someone who doesn't play a lot of spy, this doesn't affect me, so it doesn't bother me. But I can imagine if you were a spy and you actually took the time to get good with this weapon, only for it to get nerfed into the ground. So in my opinion, I definitely think it was something that was pretty unnecessary. Especially considering another revolver that exists that currently rewards you with crits for literally just playing spy. Yeah, I don't know how that thing slipped Valve's radar before the Ambassador, but Jesus Christ, the new meta is here after Jungle Inferno. Now, on the other hand, we got the Dead Ringer, which has definitely had a long history of being pretty annoying to fight against. This thing was extremely unfun pre-patch. It was just ridiculous utility that spies can abuse to pretty much never die. I mean, we're talking some Queen of England level resilience. It's insane. Now, luckily, the TF team negated the crazy recharge bypasses you can make with this thing by not allowing it to be refilled by either dispensers or ammo packs around maps, meaning you either have to go back to spawn or wait for the cooldown to use the Dead Ringer again. I don't know, overall I like this change a lot, because instead of nerfing the effects of the Dead Ringer, they just instead focused on negating spam of the tool, which was a smart way of making both parties happy here. Overall, the changes to Spy and Jungle Inferno were a little ridiculous. I more wanted to talk about the Ambassador. I think the Dead Ringer was just sort of a controversial one, just for the sake that a lot of spy mains use it, but I definitely think the Ambassador was wrongfully convicted. Anyways, let's move on to Scout. Okay, get ready for some bias on this one, because, well, I'm a Scout main, so here we go. Obviously, there's gonna be some mixed opinions on this. Now, if you want to talk items getting done dirty, well, look no further than pretty much a 90% of the Scout arsenal post-Jungle Inferno. So, many loadout combinations for this class got nerfed into the ground that really it's hard to find any viable reason to use half of these other side grades in a practical setting as Scout. So, for starters, let's talk the Sandman and Cleaver combo, because as I've said it in my other video about this combo, the nerf it got was just completely harsh, leaving these weapons as independent tools with no purpose. Now, starting with the Sandman, I agree with the nerf. Stun mechanics in any sense of TF2 are unfun and extremely frustrating to fight against, which makes me wonder why the Natasha hasn't been reworked. So having it to where players are only slowed in their movements for a few seconds compared to being completely stunned and defenseless was a long overdue change. Now, the Cleaver on the other hand was changed with reducing randomness and rewarding accuracy in mind. So then why did you remove mini crits at long range? That seemed like a pretty good reward for accuracy, doesn't it? Especially since you can't stun and insta-crit someone anymore. Honestly, I can accept the loss of the Sandman Cleaver combo, although I think it could return in a more reworked and balanced fashion. But to strip the weapon and give only a faster cooldown as a reward for hitting long-range throws is really dumb and makes it a super boring and unrewarding weapon to use. The critical was another utility for the Scout that is just a complete joke now, like of a tool now, and it's pretty much a suicide run for most Scouts. Of course, more skillful Scouts can take advantage of the effects that this thing offers, but being consistently marked for death with each shot just makes you more of a glass cannon than in most cases. Honestly, I'd rather just run a pistol at that point instead if I was that good enough. I understand nerfing its attributes to not make you a cracked up Doomslayer running towards your enemies at 70 miles per hour and splitting their jugular apart, but to make the marked for death attribute a passive thing with each consistent shot, it just doesn't make sense to me as a Scout who would just be better off using something else anyways. It works in most scenarios, and if you're playing against less skilled players, you can get away with some crazy stuff, but in most play, I mean, you're just gonna be, like, easily taken out by one rocket or one pill, so I don't know. Moving on to Soldier, really all I gotta say is Valve, please fix the Righteous Bison. This thing is easily the worst weapon in the game on all accounts of the fact that its current intended mechanics don't work properly at all. This is easily the saddest weapon in the game. I just thought I'd mention it because I feel bad for it. You can watch a video from Soundsmith on it, it's actually pretty good. Yeah, no, they just completely dropped the ball here. Now, lastly, I'd like to cover one melee weapon for Heavy in particular. The Eviction Notice is even worse than it was before. Now, while Heavy actually got some rather good changes overall in the Jungle Inferno update, and actually a really good lunchbox item, shout out to the second banana, that doesn't excuse the lackluster changes made to the Brass Knuckles for Heavy. Now, while the 20% damage vulnerability was removed, they instead added a health drain that occurs while the item is active, which to me makes this thing kind of more useless as a melee weapon, or even a utility for that matter, more so than it did before. Simply put, I'd rather just weapons sort of just act like any of Scout's melees, where you can swing faster for less damage than conventional melee weapons. Now really, this thing was never a great, heavy melee to begin with, considering all the other choices he has, like the Fist of Steel, which can help build Uber and, block hit scan. And then, of course, you got the Grooves, which are great for running across the map and getting the mid faster, right? You got a bunch of other really useful utilities, or at least melee options for heavy. It's just, I thought they could have done this thing a bit more justice, considering it's been, not the best melee pretty much since its inception. I don't know, I'm kind of sad because it's actually pretty fun with the buffalo steak sandwich. You can go on some pretty fun tears if you're lucky. So those were some of the notable weapons I wanted to discuss that I think in some way or another were kind of dumbed down or nerfed harshly in Jungle Inferno. Personally, in terms of balance, I think Jungle Inferno was like probably my least favorite update. I don't know, I just really didn't like a lot of the different things they did to the classes. I understand that a shift in the meta can be good if done properly, and that a lot of the balance changes made of this update were probably for the better, to be honest. But I just can't help but feel the opposite, and that some of these changes were actually almost for the worse in terms of fun, and just make some of the weapons that were affected situational or borderline useless in most scenarios. Let me know your thoughts down below, what you think about any weapon change. If you could consider leaving a like, if you enjoyed, or a dislike if you did not, I would greatly appreciate it, as ratings are a great metric to see what content you guys want to see in the future. With that in mind, guys, I would like to thank you all for watching, and as always, thank you, and have a good day.